All right, everyone. So a hot story right now is Joe Biden calling Trump supporters trash. This is something that really feeds into the conservative movement. Now they can say, well, look, the president of the United States just called tens of millions of Americans trash. This is awful. This is a terrible president. He claims to represent the American people, but he is calling tens of millions of his own people trash. This is terrible. What an awful president. What a disgusting person. This president of ours, he is scum. He is supposed to represent us, but he calls me trash based on who I vote for, based on my beliefs. This is terrible. This is disgusting. And this is like when someone brought up the name of Jesus Christ in a Democrat rally, and Kamala Harris said something like, you're in the wrong rally, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, you see, she hates Christians. And Democrats keep doing this thing where they keep falling for the traps set up by conservatives, or they keep feeding into conservatives. They feed the conservatives. They're feeding the beast, if you will. And what I mean by that is conservatives love to spread out stories that make the Democrats look terrible, obviously, right? I mean, this is a propaganda war at the end of the day. And so you have Democrats saying things like, well, Trump supporters are trash, or Trump is a Nazi, or look, this Trump rally, it's a Nazi-like rally, yada, yada, yada. Oh, you see, the Democrats, they keep calling us Nazis. Now they're calling us trash. Some guy brings up Jesus at a rally, and Kamala Harris is telling him to find a different rally. I mean, the Democrat Party is an antichrist party, et cetera, et cetera. And so it feeds into the conservative propaganda machine. Now, are the conservatives right about the things that they say about the Democrats? For the most part, yes. But I am simply just speaking from the position of an observer. I'm observing all of this here. And one thing that I have noticed, like I said, is Democrats keep falling for these traps. And when they fall for the traps, they feed into the conservative movement. So, for example, Joe Biden calling Trump supporters trash. This was a response to a comedian who was speaking at a GOP rally, in which he said that there is a giant pile of trash in the middle of the ocean called Puerto Rico. Now, this comedian knew damn well that by saying this joke, he was going to piss people off, he was going to offend people, and it worked. He got exactly what he wanted. So he says, oh, look, Puerto Rico, it's a giant pile of trash, lol, LOL, haha, it's so funny. Then what do you see? What do you see? Freaking Tim Walz and AOC speaking at some podcast together, and Tim Walz is listening to this comedian make this joke, and this comedian is smirking and he's smiling, and he knows exactly what he's doing. He is there to anger people. He's there to get under people's nerves. He's there to get under the skin of the Democrats. And Tim Walz and AOC are there. They're in their podcast. They're watching this clip. And guess what they do? They express outrage. And that is exactly what the conservatives want. They want the Democrats to be outraged at the Republicans. So the Republicans can say things like, you see, the Democrats, they can't even take a joke. They are so sensitive. They are so just touchy, and they can't take a joke. They're so annoying. They're dumb. They're easily agitated, easily provoked. They're snowflakes. These people are snowflakes. You see, we conservatives, we are the party of humor and fun and just cracking jokes. And these Democrats, they're just a bunch of tight asses, annoying, just stuck-up people who can't take a joke. You see how terrible these Democrats are, and now the Democrats have the audacity to call tens of millions of Americans trash? Oh my goodness, well, I guess we're all trash now. And then Donald Trump comes in, and guess what he does? He drives a damn garbage truck. So Trump is basically saying, well, my voters are trash. I guess I'm a garbage man now. So what is he doing, right? He is affirming the insult. He is taking the insult and he's throwing it right back into his opponent's face. You want to call me trash? I'll throw it right back at you. Yeah, I'm a freaking garbage man. And it's very effective propaganda. It's like if you insult somebody and they take that insult and say, yeah, I am that person. I am this insult. Name your insult. I am that guy. It's like I heard that the term Christian used to be an insult when the Christians were a brand new movement within the Roman Empire, people would call them Christians as an insult. And the Christians said, oh, you know what? We are Christians. That's right. And to this day, we're calling ourselves this title. Christians still call themselves this title. So it just never worked. By applying the insult to yourself, you deflate it, you neutralize it, you disarm it. And so it just looks bad for the Democrats. And Democrats, they just keep falling for this stuff. They keep shooting themselves in the foot. It's like when Trump agreed to go on the Joe Rogan show. I mean, the Joe Rogan show, it is the biggest #1 podcast on earth. You are running for the Oval Office. You're running for the executive branch, the presidency. You damn well better go on the #1 podcast in the world. Abso-freaking-lutely, you should go on that damn podcast. You're talking about tens of millions of viewers. Of course you're going to go on that podcast. But what do you see Kamala Harris doing? She's on, what, Telemundo, some Mexican TV network. It's just garbage. I mean, just wasting her time. And where's Trump? He's on the #1 podcast in the world, talking for 3 straight hours. And guess what? You watch that conversation between Trump and Rogan, and Trump is cracking jokes. I mean, Rogan, I could be wrong. This could be me just not observing things correctly. But I just kind of got the impression that Rogan was a little bit tense in that conversation. Maybe he was. That's just my impression based on the body language, but I could be wrong. But at the same time, Trump is cracking jokes, and Trump is very relaxed. He's relaxed. He's telling stories. He's humorous, and he tells this very funny story. I found it very funny, where he says that the French Parliament voted to put tariffs on all American companies, and Trump said, Joe Rogan, Joe, I called up Emmanuel Macron and I said, Emmanuel, why are you doing this? Well, sorry, Donald. Sorry, Donald. The Parliament has already decided. There's nothing I can do about it. Emmanuel, if you don't stop this, I'm going to put 100% tariffs on all of your French wines and champagnes. Donald, this is not fair. Emmanuel, I'm not joking. And he said, in 2 minutes, Emmanuel Macron reversed the whole damn thing. I thought that story was hella funny. It's entertaining. And what is Kamala Harris doing? She's talking on some other TV network. Some Hispanic TV network, Telemundo, Telenova, whatever. It's just, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like really good, effective marketing for me. It doesn't make any sense. And Kamala Harris did not want to go on the show. She does not want to go on the show. I heard that she said, well, I don't have the time. You don't have the time to go on the #1 podcast in the world. That is obvious garbage. And she said, well, I'll go on the show, but here are my list of demands. And Joe Rogan said, no, I'm not going to do this. It's complete garbage. It just doesn't make any sense. But the Democrats, they just keep shooting themselves in the foot, getting outraged by jokes. The right wing, the conservatives, the Republicans, they are trolling the Democrats. And the Democrats keep just acting outraged, acting offended. And when you act offended at a joke that was meant to offend you, everyone goes on the attack. It's like sharks smelling blood. They all go on the attack. Silence is the best solution to people being offensive towards you. Or you just take the insult and just say, yeah, I am that thing that you say that I am. Okay. And then you just throw it back into their faces. But the worst thing you can do is be offended or to express offense, because like I said, that is blood in the water. The sharks are there. And this comedian guy that was speaking for the GOP, whatever his name is, Mr. Hinchcliffe, whatever his last name is, this guy is growing. He has a popular show on YouTube where he has this guy do impressions of Donald Trump. And this guy does really good impressions of Donald Trump. I mean, I've listened to it. It's hilarious. So he has this very popular show on YouTube. It's growing tremendously. It gets millions upon millions of views. I mean, this guy is growing. And he goes in there and he makes fun of Palestinians. He makes fun of Jews. He makes fun of Puerto Rico. And he said something like, listen, guys, we're tired of the wars. We're tired of being involved in wars. The whole Israeli versus Palestinian thing is getting very, very old. We all know what's going to happen. We all know it's a game of rock, paper, scissors. We know that the Palestinians are always going to use rock. They're always going to use rock, and we all know that the Israelis have difficulty throwing out that paper, basically saying Palestinians throw rocks, Israelis love money, blah, blah, blah. It's the typical stereotypes. And listen, if a whole bunch of Palestinians in America got outraged by that and said, oh my God, blah, 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 that would be a disservice to the Palestinian cause, because then people would say, oh, look at these Palestinians. They want to control people's speech. They don't want people saying jokes about them. No one is exempt from being joked about, et cetera, et cetera. This is America, blah, blah, blah. It just looks bad for you. And if the Israelis came out, if Jewish Americans came out and said, this guy is promoting typical anti-Semitic stereotypes, saying that Jews are greedy and blah, 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 it's anti-Semitism, it does not look good if you act that way, right? It would not look good for Jewish people if they acted outraged at what this comedian said, because then all the comedian has to say is, you can't take a joke and you want to restrict my speech, you want to prevent people from saying jokes, this is America, Jack, we have the First Amendment, blah, 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 blah. Now, after Tim Walz did the podcast with AOC, and he said, oh my gosh, this comedian, this is awful, blah, 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 whatever. He said something like, he called the comedian a jackwad or something like that. What does the comedian do? He goes onto his Twitter account, X account now, and he shares the video. Or he talks about what Walz said or something like that, right? He uses it to his advantage. That helps him. That grows his following. That expands his profile. It makes him more popular. It's good marketing. So when you make fun of people or when you make jokes and people get outraged, that is marketing for the comedian. And I don't know why Democrats haven't figured this out. I don't know if they're just pretending to be outraged because they think they can get more Puerto Ricans to vote for them. I don't know what it is, but they just keep falling for the trap, and it's damaging to them. It does not help them. It doesn't help. It's like all the years when Muslims would get mad and act violent when someone would make fun of Muhammad, and it just never looked good for the Muslims. It never did. It always looked bad. It was always bad marketing for them. Always. And that's the way things work. I mean, what I'm seeing right now is the Democrats are sort of acting like how conservatives were acting decades ago. So decades and decades ago, Christians and conservatives sort of dominated America, right? To a great extent. I mean, they were a huge influence in the United States. And what happened? Liberals came over and they started, mocking Christianity, mocking conservatives, and the conservatives would get outraged and they would get mad, and you had conservatives getting mad about, Marilyn Manson concerts or all that and all this stuff. And what did that do? It helped the anti-Christian side, because what would they say? They would say Christians can't take a joke, they are stuck up, they are tight asses, they are touchy, they want to control us, blah, 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 blah. And what that did was it made rebellion looked cool. Look at these Christians. They get so mad. They're so stuck up. Ha, ha, ha. I'm going to continue to offend them. I'm going to continue to do the jokes, to make the jokes that offend these people, because I love watching these people get pissed off. I love, as the English would say, taking the piss out of them. I love just trolling these people. Now, why do some people find it fun to offend people? Whatever. I think it's a control thing. It's like, look, I can get this person angry. I have control over his mind. I'm in his head. I'm manipulating him, things like that. But regardless, nonetheless, notwithstanding, it worked for the liberals. It was humor became an effective weapon for the liberals. And now you're seeing conservatives doing the same damn thing that the liberals were doing to them decades ago. Now you're seeing the conservatives cracking jokes, mocking the other side, and now the libs are getting angry. That's what you're seeing happening. You're seeing the libs getting angry, the libs getting offended, and it is a paradise for the conservatives, because it gives them tremendous amounts of ammunition to use against their political enemies. And it's very effective, but the Democrats keep falling for this. A comedian says Puerto Rico is a giant pile of trash, and what happens? Biden comes over and says, well, the only trash I see is Trump's followers. He just called tens of millions of Americans trash. Now, this comedian, he was simply making a joke, but the president of the United States, who holds the highest position in American politics, in the American political system, the man who was supposed to be representing the American people, he is now calling tens of millions of his own people trash? Are you kidding me? It just doesn't look good. And it puts Kamala Harris in a very difficult predicament because she's running for office, but she's running for office as a representative of Biden. So anything bad that Biden says or does is automatically connected to her. And people can just say, wait a second, why should we vote for you when you're currently the vice president and you're representing this terrible person named Joe Biden? So it's a difficult uphill battle for Kamala Harris. And I am seeing the Republicans, the conservatives, just dominating the marketing sphere, dominating the meta. And Elon Musk buying X, that was a game changer. That was a whole level of advantage for the conservatives because now they have this major platform with little to no censorship. They can say pretty much whatever they want. And now it's the number one place where people go to get their news. The problem is that you have a lot of Nazis on there and you have all sorts of people getting radicalized without even knowing it. I mean, I have seen people, I know people who are now telling me that they're getting into like hardcore far-right literature because they saw it on X or they read something on X. I mean, it's scary to see what's happening, but we are entering a whole new world. We are in the transition point where we are transitioning into a whole new world. I mean, right now, you see this Andrew Schultz guy. He's a comedian, very famous comedian now, and he is saying things that are said by far-right figures online. I mean, I heard him say recently, well, all the Jews got kicked out of all these countries. Every single country outside of America that have kicked out Jews. And why is this? Well, I don't know. If you heard that every restaurant in town kicked out a particular person, would you be sympathizing with the person or would you be agreeing with the restaurants? You would agree that there's something wrong with this person given that he's been kicked out of every single restaurant in town. And he used that analogy, he applied it to the Jews, and it's scary to see this sort of rhetoric being propagated. The thing is that he said it in a joking way, so if you criticize him, you can't take a joke. Humor is a weapon. Humor is not just joking. Humor, my friends, is a weapon. All humor, all comedy is politics. Because comedy, what makes something funny? You ever think about this? What makes something funny? What makes something funny is that it has a kernel of truth in it. Right? Have you ever heard the saying, it's funny because it's true? That's always the case with good jokes. If I told you, well, there's a bunch of aliens in Saturn and and I said some joke about whatever, I mean, you'd be like, okay, fine, but we don't live in Saturn, aliens don't exist, so why the hell are you telling us this joke? But if I made a joke like, I don't know, Palestinians are always going to throw a rock in a game of rock, paper, scissors, ha, ha, ha. Why is that funny? Because, well, it's very common knowledge that when Palestinians confront the IDF on the streets, they throw rocks. It's also a stereotype that Jewish people are really good at making money. So in a game of rock, paper, scissors, Jewish people are going to have difficulty throwing that paper, if you know what I'm saying. That's the joke that the comedian said in the GOP rally. And his jokes, caused a lot of outrage and all that stuff. And that outrage has helped him. And it's also helped the Republicans. But what makes something funny is that it has a kernel of truth, right? It's either something that much of humor is taking something that is true and either exaggerating the truth or it's taking the truth and sort of downplaying it. Humor usually lies in a spectrum between these two situations or within these two situations or either one of these situations. It lies in a spectrum. And humor is comedy, really, is political commentary. It is societal commentary. It's commentary on society, on life, on politics. And so humor is used to influence people. You can take something that's political or take some sort of a political reality, make a joke about it. People laugh and they say, wow, that's really true. And I'm laughing and they're being entertained. At the same time, they're being influenced. It's like a meme. You watch a meme and within less than a second, the meme has influenced you. That's the power of memes, right? It shows you a picture of some giant Polynesian guy. Then it says, oh, look, Syrian migrants, they're very well fed and they're now invading your country. And it's like, well, that's not a Syrian. That's a Polynesian dude in Hawaii on a jet ski. But you have people who will see that meme and that meme actually exists. It was used. It was very influential on the internet, I remember, during the 2015 migrant crisis. And people thought it was a Syrian. And I'm thinking, that's not a Syrian. That's some Hawaiian dude in a jet ski. What are you talking about? Or there was one video showing a bunch of people fighting in a pool, and they said, look, Syrian migrants are being violent in a pool in Germany. And it turned out that these weren't even Syrians. These were Israelis fighting in a pool in Israel. And they said it was in Germany, and they said that the people fighting each other, they said that the people acting violent were Syrians. Oh my, and people believe this bullshit. They believe it. But you see, looking at one video, one clip of video out of context, looking at one photo taken out of context and misapplied and misconstrued to spread a lie can influence people within seconds. That's the danger. And a lot of people just don't look at a photo and say, a lot of people look at a video and then they read the description of said video and they believe automatically the description. So if I go onto Twitter and I say, here's a video of Syrian migrants attacking people in a pool in Germany, you look at the video and you can't even recognize that Hebrew is being spoken. You automatically think that it's German or a mixture between German and Arabic. And you automatically believe what this person has said about this video. And you automatically believe that these are Syrian migrants. And the reality is that these aren't Syrians. These are Jews. These are Israelis. And more than likely, I'm guessing you're a pro-Israel person, but yet here you are looking at a video of Israelis acting violently and saying that this is Syrians. And so people don't really think, well, where was this video taken? Who filmed it? When was it filmed? Who are the actual people in the video? What's really going on? People take a video out of context and they automatically believe the misapplication of the video. And that's what's so scary. So jokes are also very dangerous because you can actually influence people using humor. And if someone attacks the comedian or if someone criticizes the comedian, the people who are fans of said comedian will then say, you can't take a joke, ha ha ha, it's a joke. Meanwhile, the joke is in the meta, it's in the space, it's in the air, and it has influenced people. And that's the power of humor. It's very, very dangerous. It's very effective. It's very effective because you make people laugh, you influence people, and then when people attack the comedian or when people express outrage towards the joke, they always say you can't take the joke. And so humor becomes a shield by which to protect or to defend the ideology that is, or the ideological motive behind the joke. So very effective. It's very scary, but we are entering a whole new world. We are truly entering a whole new world where far-right ideology is considered to be cool. And that's another thing I wanted to mention. The Kamala Harris, this is another example of what I mean by Democrats just feeding into the beast, feeding into the conservative movement. And by beast, I don't mean the beast of Revelation. Please do not misinterpret me. Kamala Harris called Trump a fascist, right? Oh, Trump's a fascist. And then you had people in the media, people like that, what's his name? Mehdi, whatever his name is, that Pakistani British guy, Mehdi Ahmed, I think his name is. You have people in the media saying, oh, look, Trump rallies are Nazi-like rallies, and Trump is a fascist, and yada, yada, yada. So then what effect does that bring, right? What's the result? The result is a similar situation to what happened after Biden called Trump supporters trash. You have all these Trump supporters saying, oh, I'm a Nazi now? What are you talking about? Or they go to a Trump rally and they film and they interview some African-American Trump supporters and they say, look, we're in a Nazi rally. There's a bunch of black dudes here, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just, here's the problem with the Nazi label. The problem is when you start generalizing things like, oh, look, this Trump rally, it's a Nazi-like rally. People say, well, wait a second, I'm not a Nazi, I'm pro-Israel, and I'm going to vote for Trump. What are you talking about? I'm not a Nazi, I'm a black dude. I like Donald Trump, I'm voting for him. What are you talking about? I'm Jewish and I support Donald Trump. And it just doesn't make you look good. Now, what you can do is you can say, look, here are some statements from Donald Trump that are troubling. Like he said something to the likes of migrants are ruining the blood of America or something like that. You could take statements like that, or you could look at people like Steve Bannon or Mr. Miller, Stephen Miller, I think his name was. You can look at those people and you can say, well, wait a second, Bannon He's very much a supporter of fanatical Hinduism, Hindu nationalists in India. That's very troublesome. He goes to Europe and he will support far-right figures in Europe. That's pretty troubling. Same thing with that Miller guy. He is a reader of American Renaissance, which is a pro-eugenics, racist organization in the United States. That's very troubling. You should point to specifics. Because when you generalize things, then people can say, well, wait a second, I'm not a Nazi and it doesn't look good for you. But what I will say, because I'm not oblivious to this reality, is even when you criticize specifics, such as criticizing Bannon or criticizing Miller or criticizing what a particular person has said, the followers, the right-wingers, they will still attack you. And that's what's so disturbing, because many times I have criticized real specific examples, or I have not criticized, I have pointed out and exposed real specific examples of ideologies or ideological statements that are very much parallel to Nazism, or really just are plainly Nazism, and right-wingers have still attacked me. You know, I've warned people about the revival of Nazism. I've warned people about the revival of German nationalism, and I have people telling me that I'm a racist against Germans. Wait a second, when have I ever been racist against Germans? So you have people who are ideologically partial to Nazism or something to the likes of Nazism. They're partial to eugenics, and they will find any reason to try to misconstrue what you say, misinterpret what you say, and make you look like you're the bad guy, or make you look like you're the overgeneralizer, when the reality is that you're simply pointing out facts. And hey, as conservatives, you should care about facts, because facts don't care about your feelings. You should only be caring about the truth, right? Follow your guy, Ben Shapiro, or at least follow that principle. But the thing is that the word Nazi, here's another scary reality here. The word Nazi has lost its strength. It truly has lost its strength, because you look at a party like the AfD in Germany, rising party, growing strong in popularity, recently won first place in Thuringia, recently won second place in Saxony, recently won second place in Brandenburg. It is now in the double digits of electoral popularity in Germany. Very serious. And you look at some of the leaders of the AfD, whether it's Bjorn Höcke saying that we need to have a complete 180-degree shift in how we talk about the Holocaust and calling Holocaust memorials monuments of shame, or if it's Maximilian Krah, another AfD leader, saying that not all SS leaders were criminals, not all members of the SS were criminals, be it a member of the AfD begging Hitler to come back, be it another member of the AfD being seen actually dancing on top of a Holocaust memorial, be it members of the AfD going to going to a concentration camp and actually expressing Holocaust denialism. You can point to all these examples, and people will still attack you. Right-wingers, American conservatives will actually attack you for criticizing the AfD. And you can point to them all the facts about the AfD being really a modern-day Nazi party. They don't care. So what does this mean? It means that the word Nazi, the label of Nazi, has lost its meaning. Not lost its meaning, but it has lost its gravity. It has lost its strength. It has lost its potency as a label. Now, a lot of this is due to the fact that the word Nazi has been thrown around quite vaguely for decades. And when a word that is very serious, when a label that has a very heavy gravity is thrown around vaguely for so many decades, it loses its meaning. It loses its strength. Oh, this guy's a Nazi. That guy's a Nazi. This guy's a Nazi. And it's like, okay, who cares? Because that word has been thrown around vaguely and in an empty fashion for so long that it's lost its fortitude. And that's what's so scary. So now when you see real Nazis coming up, like real deal Nazis rising up in the political sphere of Germany, and you say, look, this is serious. Who cares? We've been hearing the word Nazi being thrown around for so long, and you're just like the mainstream media. Now, I will say that this argumentation, saying, well, that word has been thrown around, so I don't care about it anymore, I would say that this is a mask. I would say that people simply use that argument to justify their own internal destructive and insidious ideology, and they don't want to admit that they're Nazi sympathizers or sympathetic to a revival of Nazism. So they will simply use the argument and say, well, that word has been thrown around, so it's lost its meaning. Well, it never lost its meaning. It has been downplayed and watered down. And people will downplay it, and people have watered it down because they've accused people of Nazism when they're not really Nazis. I've been called a fascist many times, and I'm not a fascist. But the problem is people use that. People use the fact that it's been thrown around vaguely as a way to justify their own insidious Nazi-like ideology or just plain Nazi ideology. So that's the world we're living in. We are in a transition point. We are in a transition point that's moving into really a new world where the evil ideas of the past are coming back. And it's pretty scary. Anyway, I've talked long enough. Those are my thoughts on that. You guys just heard some theology. God bless.